Mr. President, I will first say to the presiding officer what a joy it is to see you in that chair, and welcome to the United States Senate. I wanted to talk today about the Drug Quality and Security Act for a few minutes because at this moment of dysfunction in the Congress, we are at the brink of accomplishing something that we've not been able to do in the last 25 years, the last quarter of a century. This bill, which we are about to send to the President, reforms our drug distribution supply chain, making it more secure and safer for families. It puts us on a path to electronic interoperable tracing at the unit level for drugs. It also raises the bar for wholesale distributors around the country and weeds out bad actors who find loopholes in the system to stockpile drugs and create shortages. This bill cannot come soon enough. Mr. President, our Colorado pharmacies fill over 60 million prescriptions every single year, and the Coloradans who take these prescriptions, just like people all over the country, expect their medicine to be safe. And the sad fact is that, given the current laws in place, we can't guarantee this. Pharmacists cannot determine with any certainty where a drug has been and whether it has been secured and safely stored on its way to the pharmacy. Right now, you can get more data from a barcode on a gallon of milk than you can from one bottle of aspirin 2 aisles over in the store. The normal chain moves drugs from a manufacturer to a wholesaler to a pharmacy. Under the current patchwork of state laws, drugs travel back and forth across state lines among repackagers, wholesalers, and pharmacies with no real oversight by anybody. The more times that a drug goes back and forth, changes hands, the more opportunities criminals find to enter the system. And in the last decade, this lack of oversight has created an enormous gray market in the United States of America. Companies can stockpile drugs that are in high demand and sell them later at dramatically higher prices. Hospitals in Colorado are bombarded by daily calls and messages from various businesses around the country offering them drugs that are on the FDA drug shortage list and unavailable through their contracted wholesaler. According to a recent study by Premier Alliance, which includes 30 Colorado hospitals, sale prices of drugs that are in shortage are on average 650% higher than the contracted prices. These hospitals have no idea, absolutely no idea, whether the businesses that are approaching them are reputable and how they can have supply of these drugs that are in shortage. Investigations into the gray market have shown that current law offers a huge incentive to make outrageous profits at the expense of patients, whether through selling and reselling or counterfeiting or tainting drugs. A little over a decade ago, criminals in Florida made $46 million by counterfeiting 110,000 doses of Epigen, a drug used to treat anemia, a side effect of chemotherapy and dialysis. These criminals sold the counterfeit drugs to pharmacies around the country. The FDA recovered less than 10% of the counterfeit product. In 2009, nearly 130,000 vials of insulin, a temperature-sensitive drug to treat diabetes, were stolen and later found across the country and even in a national pharmacy chain. The FDA, which had been notified that patients who used some of the insulin were reporting poor control over their insulin levels, were able to recover less than 2% of these stolen drugs. And just a few years ago, $75 million worth of drugs were stolen from an Eli Lilly warehouse and later found in South Florida, becoming the largest drug heist in the country's history. And just this year, the FDA notified the public about counterfeit Avastin, a drug used to treat cancer, which was being sold from a licensed wholesaler in Tennessee. These stories should scare any person in any state who takes a prescription, but fortunately, the practical compromise that is before us today will give consumers and businesses around the country peace of mind. Over the next decade, manufacturers, repackagers, wholesale distributors, and pharmacies will form an electronic interoperable system to track and trace drugs at the unit level. The barcode on our pill bottles will soon tell us who has actually handled the medicine we take and give to our children. Starting in 2015, Mr. President, the FDA will also know where every drug wholesaler is located across the country and begin to ensure that all wholesalers meet a minimum national standard. Mr. President, this legislation, after 25 years, is a model of what can be accomplished through hard work and pragmatism in the United States Congress. This bipartisan effort has the support of business groups, such as pharma and bio, as well as consumer groups, such as the Pew Charitable Trust and many others. I cannot say enough about the leadership of Chairman Harkin and Ranking Member Alexander in driving us to get consensus on this bill. Their commitment to track and trace, as well as compounding, sets an example that I wish could be replicated many times over. I want to thank Senator Franken and Senator Roberts for their leadership on the compounding part of this bill. And finally, I want to acknowledge the relentless, and this is the only way to describe it, relentless effort of Senator Richard Burr. He's been a true advocate and an outstanding partner with me and my staff. His tireless efforts and that of his staff helped us move this legislation into law. And while we're on that topic, and to close, I want to thank all of the staff who have worked on this important legislation, and I'd ask to submit a list of their names and ask that they appear in the record.
Without objection.
And thank you, Mr. President. And with that, I say I hope that we get a strong show of support. I know we will on the floor of this Senate for this bill, that we get it to the President's desk, and that we restore a sense of safety about our pharmaceutical distribution chain. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.